I was living in Palo Alto at the time, but most of the engineering expertise was in Southern California, so that's why I moved to LA.
Did you ever have any, like, even inkling of imagination that you could be doing, a dozen launches a year and being contracted with NASA? Is that even like...
I thought that was very... I thought we had, 10% chance of success or something like that.
You ended up being chief engineer, right?
Yeah.
Because no one wanted to give up their secure jobs with ULA and something at the beginning.
Exactly. I actually tried to hire... Basically, there'd been a number of attempts at doing a sort of a private rocket company or commercial rocket company, and they're all failed effectively. And that's to the degree that it was like a joke in the aerospace industry. Like, how do you make a large fortune in the rocket? Start with how do you make a small fortune in the rocket industry? Start with a large one. Pretty soon it's going to be small.
Business.
Yeah, they told me that joke so many times. I would just jump to the punchline, it was very hard to recruit people because I had not built any physical hardware before. And I kept being called internet guy. For the longest time, for ages. Finally, for the first 10 years, they were calling me internet guy, or basically internet entrepreneur / fool. He's trying to start a rocket company. What an idiot. That was generally how it went. So it was quite hard to recruit people. And especially if somebody's got like a secure job at Boeing or Lockheed or something like that, then trying to recruit them to be chief engineer of a solid rocket company was hopeless. So basically, nobody who was good was willing to join, and there was no point in hiring somebody who wasn't good. So I ended up being chief engineer, which is the first 3 launches failed, and probably if I'd been better, then we would have gotten to orbit sooner. So it took me a while to learn all these things. So
from books or
books and talking to people.
Did you go to Utah and talk to anybody, like at ATK Orbital?
Oh yeah, I visited ATK. Yeah. Orbital is Dallas, Virginia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I visited ATK, visited Orbital. And Orbital had a success with the solid rocket-based Pegasus, but they'd also gotten like an 8-launch deal from DARPA. So okay, if you're starting off with basically an 8-launch deal from DARPA, that's a good situation. We did not have a launch deal from anyone. And Pegasus is there's some clever engineering with Pegasus, but fundamentally, I think launching rockets from planes is not sensible.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would be a good idea, but it's not. And then even Orbital went away from doing that with as soon as you get past a certain size, they went to ground launch.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that ATK, Morton Thiokol, they were doing snowcats, they were doing ski lifts, and they sold that to the man who made the DeLorean.
Really?
Yeah. I just read that in their Wikipedia. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. What to come around.
So, yeah. Okay, so we got SpaceX going. And that was very difficult. We got the Falcon 1 rocket built. It was very simple. It's the simplest orbital rocket that's liquid fueled, so that it had the potential for reusability, for useful reusability. And then we had 3 failures. Finally got to orbit at the end of 2008. So
that was incredible.
Yeah. Incredible.
Going down to Kwajalein and watching
Yeah, you wrote it like a blog for a while.
Yeah, I actually still have it up there. It's still, and it's an old blogging platform that Google still keeps alive. It's called quasrockets.blogspot.com.
I think it's going to get a lot of traffic soon.
Yeah, totally. Send it. Check it out. It's all there. It's photos and photos of there was one photo of Elon picking up a satellite. We launched the rocket and the rocket exploded, which was very, very, very sad. Everyone's super sad. The people were like pouring their heart and soul into the rocket. And the satellite was, I think, the U.S. Navy or
Air Force Academy.
Air Force Academy, and it was thrown out of the rocket and fell through the roof of the hangar.
Well, not this is like where you really think.
Hangar, exactly. It's like a stand-up tent.
And small tool shed.
Yeah.
Wasn't supposed to do that.
Like the size, maybe the size of this room. The rocket it had. This is the first launch failure, so it had there's a cracked aluminum B nut on that cracked during liftoff and created there was an engine fire. This wouldn't have been the end of the world, but there was one of the helium lines was steel mesh overwrapped with a Kevlar sleeve, and it melted the sleeve. And so we lost pressure, pneumatic pressure, which caused the engine valves to close. So about 30 seconds after liftoff, the engine shut itself off due to the engine fire, and then it went ballistic and basically smashed in the rocks just a couple hundred feet offshore. And when it was quite a big explosion actually. In that explosion, the satellite, which was in a fairing, went through the fairing on a ballistic arc back onto the island, smashed through the tool shed roof and onto the floor in a pretty reasonable condition. Like it wasn't totally gnarled.
Reuse it?
So we gave them back their satellite. so like, we didn't lose your satellite. It may need some repair. But it was so improbable that the satellite would come back. We had a couple more failures after that. 2008 was a particularly difficult year because we had the third failure in 2008. The Tesla financing round collapsed.
Oh, it was such a nightmare.
And I got divorced, and it was just
I think 2008 was
Bad year.
really, really bad.
Yeah,
That year.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could. I think 2018.
I think 2018 was worse.
What's up with 8?
Well, with the Model 3 ramp, right?
Oh, there were so many things that happened in 2018.
So much drama, it's insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, so we're in 2002, starting SpaceX, moved down to LA, and it was pretty fun in the beginning. Like generally, startups are pretty fun in the beginning, and then you go through the chasm of doom.
Chasm of doom.
Yeah,
Trough of sorrow.
trough of sorrow. Exactly, it's rough.
Despair.
Yeah, it's usually always like everyone's like super optimistic and excited for first year or so, and then things start to go awry, and there's usually many years of grief before this finally day dawns. So it's like 2002, and then about 2003 is when Rosen and JV Stravell called me up and said, "Hey, we want to have lunch." I want to say Harold Rosen. I think that's his name. But he weirdly had he was a pioneer in space technology and electric vehicles. which is odd crossover. And he'd done something called Rosen Motors, which is like sort of an electric vehicle company, and but he'd also been pioneer in geostationary satellites. He called me up and said, "Hey, let's have lunch." So we had like lunch at like Smith and Wolanski or something in El Segundo,